Laughter erupted as Ethan pushed the glittering check back across the table. Crystal chandeliers burned above the Ashford Foundation ballroom, scattering white light over silk gowns, black tuxedos, and champagne flutes cold enough to mist manicured fingers. A string quartet faded beneath the sharp click of a microphone. On stage, Vivian Ashford stood motionless in a silver evening gown, one hand resting against the marble podium. She had spent years making executives lower their voices with a glance. Tonight, her own board wanted to make her the punchline. 30 days, board chairman Malcolm Reed announced. Our CEO will partner with one of the community's hard-working single fathers. A spotlight swung toward Ethan Cole, who had been invited to represent the neighborhood center receiving the evening's donations. His dark suit was clean but plainly rented. One sleeve sat slightly short above his wrist. Around him, smiles widened as Malcolm gestured toward Vivian. Consider it an exercise in humility. For which one? Someone called. Does he get hazard pay? Another voice added. Maybe she'll teach him how to buy a proper jacket. The laughter came in waves, polished and effortless. Vivian's jaw tightened once. She understood the message beneath the joke. The board had selected a man they considered socially disposable, then chained his dignity to hers for public entertainment. Malcolm lifted the oversized ceremonial check. Mr. Cole will receive $50,000 upon completing the challenge. In return, he'll accompany Ms. Ashford to scheduled events and introduce her to ordinary community life. Ethan rose slowly. The carpet muffled his steps, but the room still seemed to hear each one. He reached the stage, passing tables scented with roses, expensive perfume, and seared filet mignon. Malcolm extended the check. Ethan did not take it. Is the money for the center? He asked. It's your personal prize. And if I decline? You'd walk away from $50,000. Ethan looked at Vivian, not at her diamond earrings or the cameras crowding the aisle, but directly into the guarded stillness of her face. Then he turned toward Malcolm. My daughter knows I fix boilers, patch roofs, and take whatever honest work keeps food on our table. His voice remained quiet. She will not learn that her father lets wealthy strangers rent his dignity. A fork struck china somewhere near the front. The metallic note lingered beneath the chandeliers. Malcolm's smile thinned. No one is insulting your dignity. Ethan slid the check back until its gold edge touched Malcolm's cuff. Then removed the prize. The ballroom went still. Not softened. Not persuaded. Still. Vivian studied the worn callus along Ethan's thumb and the steadiness with which he surrendered enough money to change his life. She reached for the microphone. Remove it, she said. Malcolm turned sharply. Vivian, this was approved. Then approve it again without purchasing him. Her decision cost her the easy escape of dismissing the challenge as a vulgar stunt. Ethan had refused to be used, and now she had stepped inside the terms beside him. Malcolm lowered the check, trapped beneath the gaze of donors and cameras. Very well. 30 days. No payment. Ethan faced Vivian. No performance? No promises, she replied. Monday, 9 o'clock. The community center opens at 8. Vivian's eyes narrowed. Then I'll be there at 8. As the quartet resumed with an uncertain scrape of bows, neither of them joined the applause. The joke had survived, but its price had vanished, and for the first time that evening, the board could no longer control who was laughing. Monday would reveal whether Vivian Ashford had accepted a lesson or declared war. Cold air rattled through the community center's aluminum window frames, carrying the smell of wet pavement into a hallway lined with children's paintings. At exactly 8, black heels clicked across cracked linoleum. Vivian Ashford stopped beneath a flickering fluorescent tube, her charcoal coat immaculate against walls scarred by years of folding tables and winter boots. Mr. Cole, boiler room. Of course it is. A wrench struck metal somewhere below, followed by a hollow clang and the cough of aging pipes. Vivian followed the sound downstairs, where the air smelled of rust, dust, and machine oil. Ethan knelt beside an open furnace, his sleeves rolled past his elbows. Condensation darkened his work shirt, and a flashlight rested between his teeth. You're late, he said, removing it. Vivian checked her watch. It's 8:01. Children arrive at 8:30. I don't manage children. Today you manage that valve. He pointed to a red wool beside her polished shoe. Vivian stared at it. You cannot be serious. Turn it when I say, or the West classrooms stay closed. Upstairs, small chairs scraped across floors as volunteers prepared breakfast. The building remained cold enough for every breath to show. Ethan could have called a licensed crew, but the center's emergency fund had already gone toward groceries, and his own invoice lay face down on the workbench, marked a no charge. Vivian noticed it. "You're doing this for free?" The kids didn't break it. "That isn't an answer. It's the only one they need." He reached behind the burner assembly, scraping his knuckles against the iron housing. "Now." Vivian gripped the wheel. Its chipped paint bit into her palm. She turned once, twice, then braced one heel against the concrete and forced it farther. Water rushed through the pipes with a deep shudder. The furnace caught, filling the basement with a low mechanical roar. A moment later, cheers traveled down the stairwell as warm air reached the classrooms. Vivian released the valve slowly. A crescent of red paint remained on her skin. You could have postponed the classes. Some of these children only get heat and breakfast here. Ethan closed the furnace panel. Postponing costs them more than it costs us. Her phone vibrated. 3 bored messages glowed on the screen, each demanding photographs, progress reports, proof that the challenge was producing favorable publicity. Vivian deleted them without replying. Ethan watched her thumb pause above the final message. "They don't trust you," he said. "Trust is an expensive word. Only when people keep selling it." Her gaze sharpened, but she did not strike back. Instead, she crossed to a supply shelf, took a rough brown towel, and wiped the grease from her fingers with precise, almost practiced movements. "My father trusted smiles," she said. "By the time he learned what they concealed, half his boardroom had knives behind their backs." The furnace hummed between them. Warmth slowly softened the basement's frozen pipes, but Vivian kept her coat buttoned to the throat. Ethan saw it then, not cruelty without cause, but armor worn so long that its owner had forgotten where the clasps were. He handed her a pair of work gloves. 9 o'clock tomorrow." Vivian looked at them, then at the grease beneath her nails. 7:30, she said. "I want to see what happens before the doors open." Upstairs, a child laughed as heat breathed through the vents. Ethan nodded once, but the question remained in the space between them. What else would Vivian Ashford see if she arrived before anyone had time to hide it? At 7:32, the old brass bell above the center's front door gave a tired jingle, and Lily Cole stepped inside carrying a purple backpack nearly as wide as her shoulders. Warm air whispered through the restored vents, mixing with the smell of cinnamon oatmeal and yesterday's floor wax. Vivian stood beside the reception desk, studying the morning attendance sheet, while Ethan stacked breakfast trays. Lily stopped when she saw the tailored black coat. "You're the rich lady from Dad's challenge." "Lily." Ethan's warning was gentle. "What?" "She is." Vivian lowered the clipboard. "And you're Ethan's daughter." Lily nodded, then pulled a crumpled yellow flyer from her backpack. Across the top, beneath a drawing of a wrecking ball, someone had printed Community Redevelopment Hearing. "Can I ask you something?" "You already have. Why do rich people want to tear down the only place poor kids can learn?" The radiator clicked. A spoon struck the rim of a bowl in the kitchen. Then everything near the desk seemed to grow still. Ethan set down the trays. "That's enough." "No," Vivian said. Her eyes remained on the flyer. "Let her finish." Lily flattened the paper against the desk. Her small finger rested over the outlined blocks scheduled for acquisition. The center, 3 apartment buildings, a laundromat, and the neighborhood clinic. "Maya does homework here because her apartment doesn't have heat. Carlos eats breakfast here. If they knock it down, where are they supposed to go?" Vivian's phone vibrated inside her coat. She ignored it. "Who gave you this?" "A lady outside school." Ethan reached for the flyer, but Vivian placed 2 fingers on its lower corner first. The paper rasped beneath her nails. Printed in gray at the bottom was the name of a development subsidiary Ethan had never noticed. Vivian had. Ashford Urban Renewal Partners. "My company," she said. The words landed without defense. Ethan watched her face harden, expecting the familiar retreat behind polished contempt. Instead, Vivian removed her coat, laid it across a chair, and opened her laptop on the scarred reception counter. "Dad says adults hide bad choices inside long words," Lily said. "Your father has an irritating respect for accuracy." Ethan slid the laptop charger toward Vivian. "Do you want privacy?" "No. I want the truth where I can see it." The screen cast a blue-white light across her cheeks as she entered executive credentials. One folder led to another. Municipal zoning maps, acquisition schedules, relocation estimates. The cheerful chatter from the breakfast room continued beyond the double doors, while red boundary lines spread across Vivian's screen like a wound drawn with a ruler. Ethan did not lean over her shoulder. Lily did. That square is us. Vivian enlarged the map. Parcel 18C covered the community center. Its status read, Phase 2, demolition approved. Below it sat the Ashford Group authorization chain, carrying her office code and a scheduled transfer date, less than 6 weeks away. Her hand froze over the trackpad. Did you approve it? Ethan asked. This portfolio was presented as vacant commercial property. It isn't vacant. I can see that. The furnace exhaled through the vents, warming a building her corporation had already reduced to numbers. Vivian downloaded the entire file, copied its project identification number onto the back of Lily's flyer, and dialed her executive office. Cancel my morning meetings. A voice answered sharply enough for Ethan to hear through the speaker. Ms. Ashford, the board is waiting. Vivian looked through the glass doors at children lifting steaming bowls with both hands. Then they can learn patience. Should I notify Mr. Reed? Tell Malcolm nothing. She ended the call, closed the laptop, and returned the flyer to Lily with the map facing upward. The boundary between Vivian's world and Ethan's had not merely blurred. Her own signature now stood on the side, preparing to erase his. She turned to Ethan. Keep the center open. I'm going through every approval attached to this project myself. And if the board refuses? Vivian buttoned her coat, but left the borrowed work gloves on the desk between them. By noon, she said, they'll have to refuse me to my face. The red numbers on the boardroom ticker began falling before the coffee had stopped steaming. Cold noon light pressed against 40 floors of glass, while the ventilation system whispered above a table polished smooth as black ice. Vivian stood at its head with Lily's redevelopment flyer beside her leather portfolio. Effective immediately, the East Ward acquisition is suspended. A director leaned forward. You can't freeze a 9-figure project over one visit. I just did. Then the market will punish us. Vivian pressed her thumb to the authorization screen. The suspension changed from pending to active, halting demolition orders, property transfers, and tenant removals across the district. Phones vibrated around the table. On the wall, Ashford Group shares dropped 6%, then 8%. The director's objections hardened into accusation. Ethan Cole had manipulated her. Ethan had staged the broken furnace. Ethan wanted a private settlement. Vivian let each charge land before sliding the flyer across the cold wood. You classified occupied homes as vacant property. No one touched it. This is about your judgment, a director replied. 30 days with that man, and within 48 hours you've damaged the company. Vivian's jaw tightened, but her voice remained quiet. Then question my judgment without dragging his dignity through your failure. Across town, the center smelled of hot dust and tomato soup. Ethan was tightening a vent cover when his phone rang against the concrete floor. The superintendent from Bellwether Apartments did not bother with small talk. The renovation contract is canceled. Ethan lowered the wrench. That job would have covered 3 months of rent and Lily's after-school care. We signed on Friday. Our lender does business with Ashford Group. My work hasn't changed. The risk has. The call ended beneath the hollow clang of the heating pipes. A second contractor withdrew before Ethan could put the phone away. Then a third postponed indefinitely. By late afternoon, the unpaid invoices on his desk felt rough beneath his fingers, and the winter light had faded to gray along the classroom windows. Lily sat nearby, coloring the center's brick walls bright yellow. Are we in trouble? Ethan folded the cancellation notice once, then again. We're going to adjust. Can Vivian fix it? His eyes rested on the borrowed work gloves, still lying where she had left them. That isn't her job. 20 minutes later, Vivian's car stopped at the curb. She entered without an assistant, carrying the metallic chill of the street in her coat. I heard Bellwether canceled. News travels fast. I can restore the contract tonight. No. Ethan, they're targeting you because of me. He placed the folded notice inside a drawer and closed it gently. They're targeting me because they think pressure can turn people into property. Vivian set her phone on the desk. Its screen showed Ashford shares down 11% and dozens of calls waiting. Let me correct this. Ethan looked toward Lily, who was taping her yellow building to the wall. You stopped the demolition. Stand by that choice. And your livelihood. I won't trade my independence for protection from the same power that threatened it. Outside, tires hissed over wet pavement. Inside, the furnace Ethan had repaired pushed steady warmth through the vents. Vivian picked up the work gloves, but did not leave. Her phone lit again with a bored notice demanding that she reverse the suspension before the market opened the next morning. She silenced it. They gave me until 9. Ethan met her eyes across the scarred wooden desk. Then tomorrow morning, we find out what your choice actually costs. Rain tapped the center's narrow windows while the furnace breathed warm air through rusted vents. Beneath the fluorescent hum, Lily's yellow drawing fluttered against the wall each time the front door opened. A courier stepped inside, left a sealed envelope on Ethan's scarred desk, and disappeared into the wet morning. Ethan broke the seal with a paint-stained thumb. Inside lay the original East Ward authorization plan, 12 pages thick, each sheet carrying Ashford Group's silver watermark. The final page bore Vivian Ashford's signature, not an office code, not a subordinate's initials. Hers. A handwritten note had been clipped to it. Give this to the press, and everyone will know who destroyed your life. Vivian stood beside the silent space heater, still wearing yesterday's work gloves. She read the signature once, then again. It's authentic, she said. You signed it. 18 months ago. Did you read it? Her jaw tightened. I reviewed the financial summary. I approved the redevelopment authority. The center was listed as vacant. Then I signed without seeing who would be erased. The radiator clicked as hot water moved through its pipes. Outside the office, children dragged chairs across the classroom floor, their laughter softened by the closed door. Ethan turned the pages slowly. The document could clear his name before noon. It could prove he had not manipulated Vivian into stopping an innocent project. She had authorized the plan long before meeting him. Bellwether might restore his contract. The other clients might return. Rent would stop feeling like a clock counting backward. Lily appeared in the doorway holding an empty lunch container. Dad, are we still getting groceries tonight? Ethan looked at the overdue invoice beneath the envelope. We'll figure it out. Lily's gaze moved to Vivian. Can she help? Not with this. Ethan closed the folder. Vivian removed the gloves one finger at a time and placed them beside Lily's drawing. Release it, she said. Your name is being dragged through every business office in the city. That signature belongs to me. And what happens to you? The board gets what it wants. That wasn't my question. Cold daylight pressed through the rain-streaked glass, flattening the room into shades of gray and yellow. Vivian's phone vibrated against the desk. 8:21 a.m., 39 minutes remained before the board's ultimatum expired. If you publish that, she said, I lose any argument that I was misled. They will call me reckless, remove me, and restart the project under someone else. Ethan slid the evidence into a plain brown folder. For one suspended second, Vivian seemed to expect him to reach for his phone. Instead, he crossed the room and placed the folder in her hands. What are you doing? Giving you the truth before I give it to anyone else. This could restore your reputation. At the cost of making your worst decision, the only thing anyone sees. It was my decision. Yes. His voice stayed quiet. And now this one is too. Vivian stared at the folder, its rough cardboard edge bending beneath her grip. Ethan did not soften the facts or offer forgiveness she had not earned. He only stepped back, leaving space where pressure had always stood. I don't need you to be innocent, he said. I need you to decide who you're going to become. Her phone vibrated again. 8:24. Vivian opened the folder, looked at her own signature, and dialed the board's emergency line. When the call connected, she did not ask for Malcolm Reed. Keep the directors in the room, she said. At 9 o'clock, they're getting my answer. Then she ended the call, took Lily's yellow drawing from the wall, and laid it over the demolition plan. At 8:59, the boardroom's brass clock clicked louder than the murmurs beneath it. Cold morning light stretched across the polished walnut table, catching on untouched coffee and silver cuff links as Vivian Ashford entered carrying the folder Ethan had returned to her. Reverse the suspension. Protect the company. Honor your father's legacy. The demands came quickly. Vivian placed Lily's yellow drawing over the East Ward authorization, and the paper's wrinkled edges looked almost defiant against the dark wood. My father left me an empire, she said. He did not leave me permission to destroy people for it. A director pushed a termination resolution toward her. Another warned that lenders were already calling. Vivian opened the folder, but she did not use it as a shield. "The signature is mine," she said. "I approved East Ward after reading numbers instead of names." Families became occupancy rates. A clinic became underperforming space. Children became an inconvenience on a spreadsheet. The ventilation hummed overhead. Somewhere beyond the glass wall, a printer began churning out copies of her prepared statement. "You were misinformed," a director said. "I was responsible. Ethan Cole influenced you. He gave me evidence that could have saved him and ruined me." Vivian's fingers rested on Lily's drawing. Then he asked me to choose. She turned toward the camera broadcasting the emergency meeting to employees, shareholders, and the financial press. Her face appeared across the wall monitors, pale beneath the blue-white studio lights. "Effective immediately, I resign as Chief Executive Officer of Ashford Group." No one moved. A teaspoon slipped from someone's hand and struck a saucer with a clean, brittle note. Vivian continued before they could recover. She had executed an irrevocable transfer of enough personal shares into a community preservation trust to purchase the East Ward properties from Ashford Group at their documented acquisition cost. The trust barred demolition, forced long-term affordable leases, and gave residents representation over any future sale. Hundreds of families would keep their homes. The laundromat, clinic, apartments, and community center could not be stripped from beneath them. "Those shares secure your voting control," a director whispered. "Not anymore. You'll lose the company. Then that is the price." At the community center, Ethan watched the broadcast on an old television mounted above a shelf of paint cans. The radiator clicked beside him, carrying the warm metallic smell of repaired pipes through the classroom. Lily sat on the floor with her knees tucked beneath her, staring as Vivian removed the Ashford pin from her lapel and set it beside the resignation letter. Ethan had asked for a moral choice. Vivian had answered with the one thing no apology could imitate: sacrifice. Her phone began filling with alerts before she left the boardroom. Voting blocks realigning, access privileges revoked, her father's office reassigned. The elevator doors closed on the empire she could no longer command. When they opened in the marble lobby, dozens of reporters surged toward the barricades, camera shutters snapping like hard rain. Vivian stopped beneath the chandelier as the board's official statement appeared on every nearby screen. It accepted her resignation, questioned her judgment, and named Ethan Cole as the outside influence behind the crisis. She looked at his photograph beside the accusation, then at the security badge in her hand. The neighborhood was safe. Ethan was not. The furnace coughed beneath the community center floor, sending a faint smell of hot dust through the cold office. On the television, the board's accusation crawled beneath Ethan's photograph while camera shutters rattled around Vivian in the marble lobby. Ethan reached for the remote, but Lily's yellow drawing slipped from beneath it and fluttered against an old file box. "Dad, that's the same gold paper." Her finger rested on the Ashford seal printed across a discarded demolition notice. Ethan looked from the notice to the authorization plan Vivian had admitted signing. One carried her handwritten signature. The other carried only her office code and a digital approval stamp dated 11 days later. The radiator ticked. Fluorescent light buzzed above the scarred desk. Then Ethan saw that the demolition date had been moved forward by 6 weeks. He unlocked the center's records cabinet and spread every Ashford notice across the table, not hunting for another excuse for Vivian, but testing whether the punishment now falling on her belonged entirely to her. The original financial summary named East Ward as underperforming mixed-use property. The later report called the apartments, clinic, laundromat, and community center vacant commercial parcels. Occupancy photographs had vanished. Tenant counts had been reduced to 0. A revision log attached to the city filing showed the changes were uploaded after Vivian signed the original plan, then approved through a copied credential from her executive office. Ethan called the compliance number printed at the bottom. "I need the submission history. That requires corporate authorization. The filing concerns my workplace." "Then speak to Ashford Group." 3 clipped answers, followed by the dry click of a disconnected line. Lily stood quietly beside the table, her crayons smelling of wax in the overheated room. Ethan studied the timestamps again and noticed a public attachment the board had failed to remove. A calendar export linking the accelerated authorization to the same evening the 30-day pairing was proposed. He opened it. The challenge had not been invented at the gala. It had been scheduled 12 days earlier, alongside a draft resolution questioning Vivian's fitness to lead and a communications plan instructing directors to present her pairing with a socially incompatible participant as spontaneous entertainment. Ethan's name appeared beneath that phrase. Not because he had manipulated Vivian, because the board had selected him as the humiliation that would make her look reckless before they removed her. Cold air entered when the center door opened. Vivian stepped inside without her Ashford pin, the wool of her coat darkened by sleet. Ethan turned the monitor toward her. Your signature is real. I know. Your negligence is real. Her jaw tightened, but she did not look away. I know that too. He tapped the altered report, then the copied office credential. This part isn't. The furnace stopped, leaving the room so quiet that melting sleet could be heard striking the window ledge. Vivian read the revision history, the demolition acceleration, and the planned gala language. Her fingers remained on the desk after the final page, pressed flat against its rough laminate. Malcolm? She asked. These records show the board kept Chairman Malcolm Reed outside the approval chain before your confrontation. Ethan said. Whoever ran this wanted him uninformed until you were already cornered. Vivian lifted Lily's yellow drawing from beside the files. Its crooked houses and bright sun had once asked her to see families where she had seen numbers. Now it rested over proof that others had used her blindness as cover. Ethan copied the public filings onto 3 separate drives and sent one sealed packet to an independent corporate examiner, changing the evidence from a private suspicion into a record the board could no longer quietly erase. You still signed the first plan, he said, and they used that truth to hide a larger lie. Vivian folded the communications draft once, its crisp paper cracking in the warm room. They chose you to destroy me. Now they're using you to destroy me. On the television, Ashford Group announced an emergency shareholder session for the following morning, where directors intended to formalize their account of the crisis. Vivian looked at Ethan's photograph beneath the word influence, then at the copied credentials bearing her office code. The board had lost its shield. By sunrise, it would learn whether the 2 people it had placed on opposite sides were willing to stand in the same room. Cold rain rattled against the glass walls of Ashford Tower while camera shutters snapped inside the shareholder chamber. At 9:04 a.m., a court messenger crossed the marble floor and placed an emergency custody petition beside Ethan Cole's microphone. The paper smelled of fresh toner. Its top line accused him of accepting secret payments to influence Vivian Ashford. Withdraw the evidence. Admit she paid you. Keep your daughter. Ethan looked through the public gallery, where Lily sat with a county family services officer, clutching her yellow drawing against her coat. Then he slid the petition aside and connected one of the secured drives to the presentation console. My daughter deserves a father who doesn't teach her that truth is negotiable. The screens illuminated with revision logs, authorization dates, and the independent examiner's verification seal. A board attorney rose immediately. These files are contested. They're independently preserved. Mr. Cole is compromised. The air conditioning carried a metallic chill through the chamber. Leather chairs creaked as shareholders turned toward Ethan, and the red recording lights above the doors blinked steadily. He opened the examiner's preliminary statement, placing his freedom, his reputation, and his right to raise Lily inside the official record. Before he could read the second page, Vivian stood. She wore no executive pin, carried no security detail, and no longer possessed the voting power that had once made rooms obey her. Yet the whispering stopped when her heels touched the stone aisle. I signed the original redevelopment approval, she said. That was negligence, and I will answer for it. Ethan Cole did not bribe me, manipulate me, or profit from my decision. The attorney lifted a document. Ms. Ashford, the directors are prepared to consider restoring your CEO position if you clarify that Mr. Cole exerted improper influence. A projector hummed behind her, washing the wall in pale blue light. Vivian glanced at Lily's yellow drawing, now pressed against the gallery glass, then removed the unsigned reinstatement agreement from the council table. Its heavy paper bent between her fingers. Release every East Ward file. That offer expires if you testify. Then let it expire. Vivian placed the agreement beneath Ethan's evidence drive and addressed the independent examiner by name. She waived executive confidentiality over the relevant communications, surrendered her claim to immediate reinstatement, and requested that the full record, including her own failures, be released to shareholders, regulators, family court, and the public. The directors could protect her path back to power, or they could keep their accusations against Ethan. They could no longer do both. The examiner confirmed that the bribery allegation had originated only after Ethan secured the files and that no payment had ever reached him. On the gallery side, the family services officer closed the custody petition and stepped away from Lily. No applause followed. Only the soft click of Vivian's pen as she signed away the last shortcut back to her old life. Ethan had entered the chamber prepared to lose his daughter rather than bury the truth. Vivian had answered by surrendering her empire's highest seat rather than let that truth destroy him. Across the long table, the directors lowered their eyes as the public archive began uploading. But when the chamber doors opened and Lily ran toward them, Ethan and Vivian stood inches apart with no contract, no challenge, and no board left to define what they were to each other. The yellow paper trembled in Lily's hands beneath the white chamber lights, its waxy crayon lines showing 3 figures beside a brick building with every window glowing gold. The ventilation hummed overhead, and cold air slipped through the open doors carrying the wet smell of downtown pavement. Ethan crouched as Lily ran to him. "They're done," she whispered. "They're done," he said. "And you're staying with me?" "Always." Vivian stood several feet away, her signed waiver resting on the polished table behind her. Without the tailored authority of the CEO's chair, she seemed smaller, but for the first time, nothing about her was guarded. Ethan rose and crossed the marble floor. "You gave up your way back." "It was never a way back," Vivian said. "It was another leash. You could rebuild somewhere else." "So could you." The reporters waiting beyond the doors lowered their microphones as Lily stepped between them and held up her drawing. The page smelled faintly of crayons and the community center's dusty classroom cabinets. Above the 3 figures, she had written home in uneven blue letters. "I made this before they said Dad could keep me," Lily told Vivian. "I didn't know if you'd still be in it." Vivian's fingers hovered over the paper without touching it. Ethan watched her jaw tighten, then relax. For 30 days, other people had chosen where they stood, when they met, and what their closeness was supposed to prove. Now the cameras were waiting for a polished statement, the kind Vivian had delivered all her life. She walked past them. Ethan followed, but only as far as the courthouse steps, where the rain had softened to mist and traffic hissed over black pavement. "The agreement is over," Vivian said. "No board, no obligation, no reward." "Good, good. I never wanted what they paid for." A bus groaned at the curb. Lily tucked the drawing beneath her coat, protecting its bright windows from the damp air. Vivian looked toward the waiting car that no longer belonged to an active CEO, then back at Ethan. "I don't know how to do this without controlling the terms." Ethan removed the 30-day partnership card from his wallet. Its embossed edge caught the gray morning light. He tore it once, then again, and dropped the pieces into a recycling bin. "Then don't set terms." "What are you offering?" "Saturday breakfast. At the diner near the center. Lily chooses the pancakes. You come because you want to." Vivian glanced at Lily. "Are the pancakes any good?" "No," Lily said. "But Dad fixes things." A quiet laugh escaped Vivian, unpolished and surprised. Then she reached for Ethan's hand. Not for the cameras, not for Ashford Group, and not because anyone had paired them. He closed his fingers around hers. Months later, warm air moved through the repaired community center as children carried books past the preserved apartments and clinic. Vivian worked from a modest office there, directing the community trust without reclaiming the throne she had surrendered. Ethan's business had recovered, but on Saturdays his tools stayed locked away until after breakfast. Lily's yellow drawing hung between their desks, its curled edges framed behind glass. What began as humiliation had not ended in revenge, wealth, or rescue. It ended with 2 people, fully aware of the cost, choosing each other in the quiet where dignity needs no witness.